You're listening to Mischances by Lulu M. Sylvian.
Chapter 1. I had a white-knuckled grip on the steering wheel, and a healthy sense of self-preservation. Leaning forward as if a few inches closer to the windshield would miraculously grant me improved visibility, we crawled forward. I could barely see 100 feet in front of my car. There was no way I was going the speed limit, not in this fog. It wrapped around us like a blanket. The night wasn't dark, it was woolly gray, like so much sheared fleece. Some moments the fog would clear and my visibility would improve, only to be even worse with the next fluff of the eerie stuff. "Can you go any faster?" my sister asked. I dared a glance at her, afraid that something would suddenly appear out of nowhere. "Maybe your boyfriend could ride slower." I snapped back. "I mean, who says, 'Follow me,' and peels out before we're even in the car?" She shifted in her seat. I noticed she had a firm grasp of the "oh shit" handle above her window. "It's an exclusive party." It would have to be in this weather. The tail lights of the bike we were following faded and disappeared as the fog thickened and thinned. Headlights in my rear view mirror did the same. One moment a car would be behind me, the next nothing. It was creepy. I like spooky things, but this felt sinister. Suddenly, the car was surrounded by loud rumbling motorcycles. I hadn't seen any of their headlights. Both Ellie and I jumped and began laughing hysterically. "Oh my God," I gasped. "I didn't see them coming. This fog is even absorbing sounds." "Yeah, it's freaky," she said. The motorcycles sped past, and one by one their red tail lights blinked out of existence. Too many in my rear view caught my attention. "Ellie, there's a UFO behind us." I held the wheel tighter and dared to increase my speed a little bit. Ellie turned and watched as a large super truck full of fog lamps and extra lights sped past on my left. "You scared the shit out of me, Willa." I sighed. She had no idea. I'd been watching taillights merge and split and do things they shouldn't be doing. I wasn't convinced weird shit wasn't happening out there in the fog. "I think we lost Chris," I said. "No, that's him," she said, pointing as his tail light and blinker came into view. "How the hell can he tell there's even an exit coming up?" The lights we thought were Chris moved off toward the right into nothing. It was a void of fog. Let me clarify, the red light in front of me moved perfectly horizontally to the right before disappearing. It didn't move like the tail light on a motorcycle leaving the road. It moved perfectly sideways. Everything about this fog was eerie and wrong. And if my sister hadn't been in the car with me, I would have turned around and gone home. She pointed after the light. "He's getting off, hurry up or we're gonna lose him." I didn't see an exit. So I slowly eased the car over toward the side of the road, expecting there not to be an exit. But suddenly there was, and we were driving down it. A stop sign loomed out of nowhere and I slammed on my brakes. I couldn't see the tail light of the bike anywhere. "So, which way do you think he went?" I asked. Ellie peered out her side of the car, and I peered out my side of the car. "I don't know. I bet he's gone this way." She tapped her window, indicating that I should turn right. The road was small, narrow, and it wove around. Oak trees loomed over us. The fog grew thicker, and then it would dissipate, leaving a clear patch. Each time I would breathe a little easier until it folded in on us again. At some point the road curved to the right and kept curving. I could tell we were next to the lake. The lake that was making all of this stupid fog. A stone wall appeared on the edge of the road, and I followed it around. Suddenly, there were tail lights ahead of me again. Two of them, a car. "Just follow that car," Ellie said. We had been following a motorcycle, and now we were following a car. Did she not realize that? I followed the best I could. We were both going the same direction on a narrow road. It wasn't like I was going to lose them. The car turned into a drive. I stopped as I turned into the drive. Suddenly we were flanked by oversized stone walls and a wrought iron gate slid closed in front of us. "We are going to miss the party now," Ellie pouted. "I don't think we are in the right place." This looks like somebody's house. Of course it's somebody's house, Ellie said. I could hear her eyes rolling in her head, even though I couldn't see her face. The gate slid open. Go, 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 Ellie urged me on. Okay. I followed up. It looked like we were in the right place. The drive was long and disappeared into the gloom. Cars along the side seemed abandoned more than parked, and there were lots of cars parked along the side of the drive. Eventually, I saw the glow of lights from a building. I may have gasped out loud when the fog temporarily lifted. The building was impressively large and intimidating. I couldn't tell if it was a castle or an old church or something in between. Colorful lights flashed out of the lower floor windows, and I could hear the repetitive thumping of dance music. There was a party here. Whether it was the right party or not, we had yet to find out. We parked the car and climbed out. There, that's Chris's bike, Ellie said as she teetered on the super high heels that she insisted on wearing. I clumped in after her. Not stable in heels, I stuck with flats. There was nothing dull about my flats. They were covered in rhinestones and sparkly, and I had a better chance of not turning my ankle in them. We were both dressed for a party after all. That was the whole point of tonight. We climbed stone stairs to the entrance. You sure this is the right place? I asked again. I was getting cold, and I wanted to go inside, but I was also afraid that we were definitely not in the right place. This looked like the grand entrance to a Gothic cathedral. The front door swung open. A frightening-looking man, who could have been straight out of a horror movie, held the door open.
Ladies, he gestured us inside.
He was hunched and had oily-looking long hair. He wore formal tails that looked like they had been pulled off a corpse. He looked more like a butler than a super-villain welcoming his guests. Butler, lab assistant, creepy ne'er-do-well, he was clearly the maitre d' of the event, like the host with menus if we had walked into a fancy restaurant. Ellie bounced on the balls of her feet and began unbuttoning her jacket. Do you have a coat check? He reached out with a frighteningly long arm and bony long fingers to gesture toward a set of doors. Through there. His voice sent shivers down my spine. Not in a good way. The music was louder behind those doors. We went where he pointed, and there was a coat check. I don't know why I was surprised by everything that appeared whenever we turned a corner. I hadn't expected a coat check. I hadn't expected a nightclub. I certainly hadn't expected a creepy, white-haired butler. I expected beers, a bonfire, and red plastic cups. This was way better, even if I felt slightly out of my league. I wasn't driving in the fog anymore, so this was a vast improvement. Ellie bounced to the music, and I followed behind her. There was a second set of doors past the coat check. They opened magically, as if somebody knew that it was time for us to make our entrance. They were probably electronic like doors at the grocery store. But they looked old and wooden, and I didn't see any automatic door sensors attached to them. Inside the doors, framed perfectly, stood Chris with a large elaborate glass in his hands. Hey, what took you so long? I have been waiting for you forever. He sipped his drink, as if he had been there for hours and not a few minutes longer than us. Dude, did you have to go so fast in the fog? I could barely follow you. Ellie pushed my shoulder and giggled. Ignore her. She was so nervous and driving in the fog. It really wasn't that bad, but Willa was a wreck. I stared at her. What did she mean? It really wasn't that bad? It had been worse than that bad. Tail lights would disappear and show up again. It was eerie, and I expected zombies and monsters to come looming out at me. It was really creepy. I didn't like it. Hey, Ellie said, where's the bar? I need a drink after that. Chris wrapped his arm around Ellie's shoulder, and I followed behind them to the bar, nothing out of the ordinary. Except for the bartender, who was ethereal and beautiful. I couldn't tell if he was a he, or if he was a she, or if they were a they. Either way, they had long silky dark hair and the most luminous green eyes I'd ever seen. I needed to know what brand of lipstick they were using. I had never seen lips so red and so shiny. The makeup was clearly long-lasting because they had been at work for a while, and they were constantly licking their lips and looking at people. Chris managed to get us some drinks. He handed Ellie something pink and frothy and martini-like, a lotus water. I asked for water. I took one sip and realized I desperately needed a bathroom. Hey, I said, leaning over the bar trying to get the bartender's attention. When they turned those green eyes on me, I froze in space. I had been rude. I had been ignorant. I had interrupted them. I was not worthy. I really needed to pee. I didn't say anything. They pointed back through the doors we came in. Restrooms are back that way. Go down the hall. You'll see some double doors. You'll see some more double doors. You can't miss it. How the hell had they known? I gulped and nodded. Dude, I'm gonna go pee. I'll be right back. Send a search party if I don't come back in 20 minutes, I said to Ellie and Chris. As I passed the coat check girl, I pointed and mouthed, "Is this the right direction for the restrooms?" She gave me a thumbs up and I kept going. I turned past the maitre d' and all of his creepiness. The hallway was huge. The ceiling was several stories tall. The walls were stone with thick exposed beams. The place was old. But I couldn't tell what this building was. Finally, I found a set of almost modern glass doors. I pushed through them. Restrooms had to be this way. Once through the doors, I was in a courtyard. I thought it was outside, but when I looked up, the ceiling was a dome of stained glass. Everything was the most magical combination of colors. It was amazing. It was as if the sky was decorated with galaxies and sunsets. It was definitely not something I was used to. Back at ground level, there were strong stone columns and plants, and arrangements of tables that made me think that this was a restaurant. It was too late for them to be serving dinner, but it definitely had restaurant vibes about it. I continued walking. The bartender had said go through the glass double doors, then a second set of double doors, and then I couldn't miss the restrooms. I was almost there. Are you lost, little lamb? The deepest voice I had ever heard rumbled behind me. Chapter 2. My body felt like it left the floor. I had to have left my skin behind. The fright almost made me lose control of my bladder. I turned around with a scream and a giggle. And then I forgot what I was doing. He was tall. And he was stunning. He wore almost nothing. There was a little jacket that barely covered his shoulders and only covered his arms. His chest was broad with muscles and fully exposed, as were his abs, that were so rigid and defined I could file my fingernails on them. His pants barely held onto his hip bones. Barely. Everything was red leather. I think I'm in the wrong place, I said as I averted my eyes. I couldn't seem to take my gaze off his chest. He was dressed for the kind of party I didn't go to. Far too much skin exposed, and I was used to partying with Ellie, who liked to wear as little as legally possible. I gulped and stared back. Are you lost? He repeated. Nodding, I couldn't find my voice. It was a struggle to speak. I opened my mouth. I closed my mouth. I made weird gasping sounds. I stammered. Bathroom, I finally managed to say. He laughed and pointed behind me. You're heading in the right direction, here. Why don't you let me show you the way? I followed him through a second set of double doors that led into a wide hallway. He then pointed to a sign. The bartender had been right. I couldn't have missed the ladies' room. Thank you. I giggled nervously and darted away into the most generic commercial-looking public restroom I'd ever been in. I could have been in an airport or a shopping mall. This didn't look like it belonged to the creepiest place I've ever been. The bathroom just didn't fit the setting of an old church or castle. This place could not be real. Everything was so odd. And why was I so insta-horny for that guy? He was tall and wore nothing but tan skin, and I wanted to lick him like he was a piece of candy on legs. What the hell? I never thought things like that. I wasn't attracted to skin and muscles. I needed to know a person before I ever got hot for them. Tonight, apparently, my libido had forgotten all about that more holistic approach to attraction. First the bartender, and now this knight in red leather. I closed myself in a stall and braced my hands against the cool metal wall. I will not freak out. Yeah, right. We were in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by a shroud of fog so thick it had to be supernatural. And the single most gorgeous man I had ever met was very attentive to me. What was this place? What weird Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole shit have I gotten myself into? Oh my God, is someone in here? Did you say something? A voice from the other side of the stall said. Talking to myself, I said. Great, now I was some weirdo in the bathroom. I finished my business, flushed and rearranged my clothes and exited the stall. Oh, the young woman at the sink jumped a bit before relaxing into a fit of giggles. I didn't know anyone else was in here. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. I washed my hands and tried not to stare at her. She was everything I had wanted to be when I was younger. I fell victim to compare and despair looking at her clothes, her hair, her makeup. She had pink hair tied up into ponytail knots on top of her head. Instead of a headband, she had goggles on. Her makeup was social media influencer perfect, and her clothes just made me realize I needed an entire new wardrobe if I ever wanted to be seen in public again. First time here? She asked. Yeah, I answered. You really are going to want to stay. There is a killer after party. Have you ever been? I asked. Not yet, but I'm dying to get an invitation. I pulled lipstick out of my purse, giving me an excuse to hang out in front of the mirror. I wasn't looking at my own lips, slathered in my go-to basic red lipstick. I was staring at her. She wore a bright pink fishnet top with black vinyl corset and a black mini skirt. Pink fishnets, and from the knees down, she had those fuzzy shaggy party boots that I always wanted as a kid. She was party perfect. On the other hand, I had a plain black dress and sparkly black flats. My outfit was acceptable enough for many different situations. It just wasn't fun enough for this one. I hated the limitations my figure put on my fashion. Sure, I could dress however I wanted, as long as I could find it in my size, and it didn't cost the same as a small car. I couldn't sew, making my own wardrobe was not an option. She leaned forward and did her lips in a perfect bright pink. She smacked her lips together, and then ran a wand of super glossy lip shine over them. Well, back to the throng, she said with a twinkle in her eye, and she skipped out of the bathroom. I looked at myself. My lipstick really wasn't helping, but there it was. It was on and was super red. I stared at myself in the mirror until I fully doubted myself on my reasons for hiding in the bathroom. Well, I couldn't avoid it any longer. It was time to go back. I hoped I didn't get lost on the way. Double doors, double doors, double doors. I kept repeating double doors to myself as I stepped out of the restroom. The first thing I saw as I pushed out through the doors was the Red Knight, Mr. Devil himself, and this time he was talking to what I could only describe as an angel. Equally as tall, equally as gorgeous. The angel looked straight out of an anime. He had long white hair easily down to his waist. Probably longer, with only a section of it pulled back into a ponytail that sat rather high on his head, with the sides flowing long and over his shoulders. He wore vinyl that was skin tight and left nothing to the imagination. There was no question about his muscular structure. I could count every bit of his six-pack, every criss-crossed muscle over his ribs, every ripple in his arms. The vinyl covered him from neck to wrist, and all the way down. His slacks were form-fitting through the ass and thighs. Even the shoes were white with long pointy toes. I'm a sucker for pointy-toed shoes. I had a bit of a conundrum. The two men, gorgeous as they were between me and my first quarry, the set of double doors. I was going to have to walk past them. I might even have to say, "Excuse me," to get my ass past them. They took up the entire hallway. I mentally strapped on some fortitude and began walking. "My little lamb, you have returned," the Red Knight crooned. "Lamb? Shut your mouth." "She is a goddess," the angel exclaimed. I scoffed. I wasn't anybody's lamb. The only goddess I would ever be compared to was the Venus of Willendorf, not some Greco-Roman ideal. You're teasing me, I said. The Red Knight reached out and lifted my hand to kiss my knuckles. His lips sent shivers down my spine. But I knew he was just teasing me. Somebody who looked like him rarely went for someone who looked like me. Well, gentlemen, I need to get back to my friends, I said, extricating my hand, which seemed like a good idea at the time. Chapter 3. Ellie. I yelled as I ran into a throng of dancers, pushing bodies out of my way until I found my sister. Ellie, I yelled again. We have got to go. What are you talking about? We just got here. This place is slammin'. She held another one of those fancy drinks, a lotus water. No, we've got to go. We've got to go now. Chris said there's a killer after-party. It's exclusive, invitation only. I want to see if we get invited. That's just it. I think the after-party is. I stopped. How the hell did I tell my sister that I wanted to go because two exceptionally good-looking men were interested in me, and that scared me. It didn't make me nervous, it wasn't nerves. It was a fear I could not explain. Come on, Ellie, look at this place. It appeared out of nowhere, out of the fog, like some brigadoon. It's too weird. Do you know anybody here? She shook her head and her curls bounced. Well, Chris. He doesn't count, I cut her off. Does he know anybody here? Or did he just hear of this place? And all of a sudden, now there's a party for us to go to. I don't like it. It's creepy. Man, Willa, you're just overreacting. A little bit of fog and your imagination thinks we're in the middle of some zombie apocalypse version of a musical. Enjoy yourself, Ellie said. She paused and looked me in the eyes. What is that look on your face? I'm really not comfortable here. Can we just leave? I urged. No, I told you this place is slammin'. What is your problem? I sighed. This was going to sound stupid. There are two really good-looking guys out there, and they are interested in me, and they are freaking me out. You're kidding me? She laughed. You want to run away because two hotties are interested in you? You should be throwing yourself at them. Come on, Willa. This is ridiculous. It's a party, relax. Relax? Relax? She needed to look around this place. Something was seriously off, in a human trafficking kind of way, in a we will never see our parents again kind of way off. We did not belong at exclusive parties. I did not get hit on by the walking gorgeous. I cast my gaze around nervously, trying to find an example I could show her that couldn't be possibly right. I wanted to show her the bartender, with their ethereal beauty, and I wanted to show her all the people around us dancing and having a good time. And maybe she was right. Maybe I was overreacting. But I couldn't relax. I couldn't enjoy myself. I turned around and I saw my Red Knight and Angel stalking toward me. I should have been thrilled, but I was relatively terrified. Why were these two men so interested in me? My little lamb? I thought we had lost you, the Red Knight purred. How could he be so seductive, while all he did was stand there and look and smell good? And his voice, what was that accent? Ellie grabbed my arm. Is this what you were so afraid of? Oh my God. Go get it, girl. She shoved me in the back and pushed me straight into the Red Knight's arms. Now this is more like it, he said. I appreciate your, what you call it, wingman's enthusiasm. Wingman? She's not my wingman. She's my sister and she's not listening to me, I said. Come, I will listen to you. He extended his arm, leading me away from the dance floor. I didn't want to go. I needed Ellie to come with me. Your sister will be safe. This is just for a moment. Yeah, but would I be safe? I followed the Red Knight, out through the sets of double doors and down the grand hallway, and out through a different set of doors. Suddenly, we were on a patio rimmed in floodlights that reflected off the fog. It was eerily serene. I didn't expect it to be so calm and soothing, out in the mist that way. It had caused me so much stress while I was driving. I couldn't imagine that it was calm and peaceful to be in the thick of it. What has you so concerned, my darling? The angel in white pressed against my side as the Red Knight wrapped his arms around me. Surrounded by these beautiful men, I really didn't know what to do. I sighed. Giving up, I rested my head against the Red Knight's shoulder. This place is freaking me out. You're freaking me out. I don't belong here, I confessed. Why would you say that? Of course you belong here, the Red Knight soothed. His voice was the rumble of waves against the shore, reassuring yet dangerous. There's something inherently wrong here. What do you mean, wrong? Angel asked. I'm not certain. I want to say evil, but a place can't inherently be evil. Can it? The people in a place can be evil, but a place itself can't. Oh, I don't know. The fog is getting into my imagination and making me think crazy thoughts. My head began to throb with pain. My thoughts wanted me to go with the men, but I didn't want to. The more my thoughts conflicted with each other, the more my head hurt. So you think you're in danger? Do you think you're in danger from us? From me? The Red Knight sounded positively affronted. I stammered. You confuse me. You're in my head. Get out. What is there to be confused by? Angel asked. It felt like a distraction. Electricity ran through my entire body with a thrill of power as I was plastered against this man's body. I didn't want to go anywhere, I wanted to stay with him. I wanted to be consumed by him. I wanted this to be everything. And that thought didn't feel right. It felt wrong in my toes and in my gut. I didn't want to be around them, yet I needed them. More confused pain in my head, but I ignored it, I had to function. Well, first of all, you are aware of what you look like? Angel chuckled. Of course, I took great care with my dress for the evening. Right. You wanted to show off all of your abs and make sure you looked good doing it, I said. As did you. And you look ever so fetching, darling. The Red Knight's arm around my waist tightened, as if there was a competition between the two men over my affections. Yeah, but I don't look like you to begin with. I have more work to do, I said. Nonsense, you are much prettier than either of us, said the Red Knight. His accent just made my spine melt. If you feel that you are endangered here, then we should go elsewhere. It seemed like a very obvious statement, and it seemed like a very obvious thing to do. I can't get my sister to leave, and I'm not leaving without her, I pointed out. We can make that arrangement for you. Why do I think you mean you're going to walk in there, physically pick her up and walk back out? I asked. The Red Knight shrugged. It is the simplest way to get things done. Is it not? He had no idea what he was getting into. She kicks and bites, I said. I prefer when people kick and bite, but only if I have asked first. Usually I say please. He was serious. Do you kick and bite? I shook my head. He leaned down so his lips brushed against my ear. Not even if I say please? I felt my cheeks heat with a blush. I don't think you'd have to say please. I tried to hide behind my hands. Oh no, don't do that. You turn such a delectable pink color when you blush. Make her blush again. Rupert. I looked up at Angel and cut my gaze to the Red Knight. His name was Rupert. It fit in a sculpted cheekbone, high-arched nose kind of way. I turned my gaze back to the Angel. So if he's Rupert, what's your name? You can call me whatever you like. His voice was sweet and sticky, like getting trapped in honey. But you'll have to figure it out. It's quite clever of you to figure out Rupert's name, he smirked. Not really. You just said his name. My friend likes to be enigmatic. Rupert stayed close to my ear and whispered. So, are you going to tell me his name? Then? I asked. Eventually, he said. What if I say please? What if I bite? I teased. Oh my dear, I want you to say please for so many things tonight. The least of which is Gray's name, he said. The two men failed miserably at keeping their names mysteriously secretive. But I was too distracted to know any better. Rupert's hand had found his way down my back and was caressing my ass. It felt good. It felt too good. Men like him didn't typically like women who looked like me. What are you doing? Suddenly, I didn't feel well, everything hurt. It felt as if my skin wanted to peel off. I was going to throw up. I was going to pass out. Everything was so wrong. I couldn't breathe. And I couldn't think. I pushed hard against Rupert. He finally let go of me. I stumbled back and fell on my ass. I looked up at the two men. And they looked at me, as if they had never seen me before. They looked at each other. Okay. I crossed my arms. What's your game? What is going on here? They looked adorably confused. I had to pretend I was in control. Have you ever seen anything like this before? Gray asked. No, they're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to succumb. She didn't succumb. Isolda? The curse, could she be? The pain in my head started throbbing again. I couldn't hear a word they were saying, because I was trying to push my head back together. Whatever had washed over me finally subsided. And I could focus again. What the hell are you talking about? God, I feel sick. Did you give me something? They couldn't have put something in my drink. I hadn't had one in their presence. Neither of the two men offered to pick me up off the floor. Seconds ago, they treated me like I was their one and only, their true love, their little lamb. Now this is what I was, a lump on the floor. Well, are you gonna help me up or not? I asked, shoving my hand up in the air with the expectation that one of them would grab it and help haul me to my feet. This time when Rupert touched me, I didn't feel the tingles. I didn't feel the need to be all consumed by him. He was just a really good-looking guy, picking me up off the floor. My apologies, my lamb. We have overstepped our bounds and will retreat. Shall you decide you would enjoy either of our services this evening, please do not hesitate to say so should you see us again. Rupert gave me a low bow, and Gray tipped his head so that his hair fell in a cascade hiding his expression. Chapter 4. Alone outside with just the fog, I wrapped my arms around myself and looked out. As far as I could see, there was only mist. There were no shapes lurking, nothing was hiding to come after me. It was actually quite soothing. Maybe it's what I really needed, the fresh air and to be alone, and not to be inside the stuffy, overpopulated heat of the party. I leaned against the carved stone balustrade of the balcony of the patio and let myself calm down. I was too worked up. Maybe it was the frenetic energy of the music getting into my nerves. Maybe it was just being closed in by the fog and closed in by the building, and then closed in by all those people at the bar. Even Rupert and Gray had felt suffocating. This was better. I heard a sound behind me and turned. Oh, I'm terribly sorry, I didn't realize anybody would be out here. Another tall, good-looking man stepped through the doors onto the balcony. This place was populated by incredibly good-looking people. I had never seen so many good-looking men in all my life, at least not all in one place. Oh, sorry. I was just out here getting some fresh air. It just seemed too stifling inside, I said. I gestured back at the building. I understand what you mean. Mind if I join you? He sauntered over to where I stood. He sat against the wall, his back against the view. He looked like a normal person. He wasn't dressed to any extreme, unlike Rupert the Red Knight or Gray the Angel in White. He had shaggy hair that looked like he needed to get it cut, and wore jeans and a sweatshirt with the sleeves pushed up over his crossed forearms. He had good forearms, the kind of arms that make me go weak at the knees. Maybe not what other people would consider standard sexy bits of flesh, but still. I needed to get my libido in check. Clearly, all the good-looking men around me were doing something to my system. I smiled, and I may have eased in a little bit closer. He didn't seem to mind. For one moment, I thought he actually gave me one of those scans up and down my body, checking me out. I don't know what I was thinking, other than I really wanted him to check me out. What are you doing out here? Oh, just looking at the scenery. I gestured to the fog. He laughed. He had a nice voice. No toe-curling foreign accent, but a calm, deep timbre. Gus, he introduced himself and held out his hand. I slid my hand into his for a brief shake. Willa, I said. So, are you escaping the party or are you here to wax poetic about the all-elusive after-party? He smirked. Seems to me a party can't be that good if there's an after-party everybody's looking forward to. I completely agreed. For the first time all evening, I finally felt myself relaxing in his company. I don't remember exactly what we talked about, but I remember laughing at his quips and thinking this wasn't turning out to be such a bad night. My nerves didn't send up warning signals. No red flags flapped around my peripheral vision when he stood up and circled the conversation back to the party. With a stretch, he mentioned that he was not going to be waiting around for the after party. Is that what you're doing out here? Waiting, he asked. I shook my head. I'm not really interested in after parties. If the real party isn't the party, then why bother? I said. After a few moments of not really saying anything, he reached over and picked up my hand. Butterflies fluttered in my stomach. We should have our own party. He kissed my knuckles, and I felt compelled to go with him. I wasn't sure where we would be going, but I wanted to go with him. He pulled me into his arms and we began to slow dance, even though there was no music. It was all very romantic and charming. For once I didn't have those annoying thoughts of men like him, didn't fall for women who looked like me. Even though I probably should have. His eyes were hypnotic blue, and I felt like I was sinking into them. His smile made me feel special. He pulled my arms tighter around him, and my entire body pressed to his. Should we take this party upstairs? He asked. What's upstairs? I have rooms, he said. It made perfect sense that he would have rooms here. I already decided this place was some kind of exclusive country club. Didn't those have private suites? That could be interesting. My ability to think clearly was gone. Gus's lips teased my ear, and then began to nibble at the skin along my throat. His kisses found that spot where neck meets shoulder, and I forgot words. It had been a long time since I'd been touched, and his touch was better than anything I had remembered. He held me tighter. He shifted his grip on me, taking my hand and kissing the inside of my elbow, trailing kisses down my arm until he sucked at my inner wrist. No one had ever done that before. I had no idea the wrist could be so erotic. My vocabulary was gone. The only thing I managed to know how to say was, oh. And I said it over and over and over again with each lick, suck, and kiss. Maybe we should take this party somewhere else, I said between gasps. Up to those rooms you have. I wasn't comfortable having a private party out here in the open. Even though we were closed in by fog. He muttered something in a language I couldn't recognize, or the fog had invaded my brain to such a point where I no longer comprehended anything other than his mouth on mine. His kisses turned into the softest love bites. He was going to leave a hickey on my neck. I didn't care, I had enough scarves at home to cover it. His teeth caught the skin of my shoulder. Hey, too hard. Don't bite. I didn't push him away. I figured telling him biting too hard wasn't a good thing. Gus mumbled something that sounded like an apology, before returning to softer kisses. His hand skimmed over my hips and up my ribs. My vocabulary never recovered as I melted into him. I tugged at his shirt so I could touch the skin of his back. He was cool to the touch, though his body felt hot pressed against me. He held me tighter and tighter. It was beginning to become uncomfortable. Too much, Gus, too much. I tried to push against his shoulders to ease him back. It was one thing to metaphorically want to become one with each other, but we had too many clothes on at the moment. He wasn't going to meld me into his body by squeezing so hard. He muttered something in that language and began to squeeze even harder. It was difficult to breathe. His sucking and pulling on my neck was even harder. It hurt. Hey, that hurts. You need to find another spot. I squirmed and tried to push away. His muscles were solid. It was as if he was carved out of the same stone that the balustrade was. I couldn't budge him. Hey, I started yelling. Hey, my God, stop. Gus, you're hurting me. I tried to fight, but he had me in a vice grip. His hand turned from a soft cupping to hard claws. It felt like he would tear my breast off as he bit into my neck. I screamed even louder. I couldn't hold myself up on my feet. I screamed as my knees gave way. Gus held on and followed me down. I needed him to support me, to help me. Instead, it felt as if he were pushing me down into a well. Chapter 5. I thought I heard a commotion over my own pain, but it was hard to know what was going on when all I had were thoughts of, please make it stop. Suddenly, I felt more hands on me. I heard other voices speaking words in other languages. Gus was torn from my body. A hand clamped around my neck and I was swept up in arms. Who would ever be strong enough to pick me up? I have you, my lamb, you will be fine, Rupert said softly close to my ear. He yelled something in his language and turned. Opening my eyes, I saw Gray holding Gus. Gray's knuckles were red and bloody. He must have been beating Gus and knocked a tooth out. Gus's mouth was dripping with blood. There was so much blood. Press hard, Rupert said as he guided my hand to my neck. I felt woozy. I kept my hand pressed against the pain as instructed. He carried me through what felt like a labyrinth of hallways, until he burst into a room. It was dark and then there was light. And then I was in a 4-post bed with a canopy. It was the kind of bed that belonged in a castle. Everything went dark. When I came to, I was in the grand oversized 4-poster bed that I dreamed about. I was not a graceful princess waking up. I floundered and fought pillows to sit up. My head spun a little when I finally achieved an upright position. It took a few moments for the spinning to stop. When I opened my eyes again, I saw that I had a bandage on my wrist. My neck felt weird. I reached up and found a bandage there as well. Oh my darling, Gray said, you're awake. Is this the after party? I asked a little blearily. Gray chuckled, no darling. What's happened? I couldn't remember anything after they saved me. I was certain that's what I remembered happening. Gustav got a little impatient and tried to have his own little private soiree with you. Soiree? Doesn't that mean a dinner party? I asked. You're not too far wrong. How are you feeling?
Woozy, I said.
He stepped in close and handed me a tall glass with an orange liquid in it. This will help you feel better. I looked at it rather dubiously before lifting my gaze to meet his eyes. It's simply orange juice, my dear. I nodded and took a sip. It felt cool and tangy. Fresh squeezed? Of course, only the best. I returned to the drink, restraining myself from chugging it down. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. You must rest, you've lost a lot of blood. Not enough to be of any concern, but enough for you to feel it. I thought I was making out with a man, not donating blood. Gray turned and moved his head in one of those motions that tossed his long hair over his shoulder. It really was beautiful and long. He looked like some kind of elf. An elven prince that dressed like a hot guy for a rave. Suddenly, I realized I could no longer hear the throbbing backbeat of the music. Where am I? We are in Rupert's private chambers. Private chambers. Like a private apartment within an exclusive country club? I wouldn't exactly call it that, Gray said. You are safe. That is all you need to worry about. All you need to be concerned with, Rupert said as he entered the room. Gustav? Gray asked. Handled, Rupert said in a clipped manner. Gray lifted an eyebrow and cocked his head to the side. Oh, Friedrich isn't going to like that. He's not going to like that at all. Friedrich can challenge me if he doesn't like how I handled the situation. Gustav trespassed where he was not wanted, was not invited. And he did not wait. I dealt with him. Rupert sounded deadly. His expression was grave. I swallowed around a dry spot in my throat. It was as if I hadn't had that orange juice recently and was parched. What did you do to Gustav? I asked. Oh, my little lamb. Rupert was by my side, picking up my hand. He stroked delicately over the bandage and kissed it reverently. You need not worry about Gustav. He was a man who did not think the rules applied to him, and that there wouldn't be consequences to his actions. Consequences? Rupert reached up and stroked my brow, brushing the hair out of my face. You need not worry about him any longer. You are safe. He stood and crossed the room. I sat in the bed, quite comfortably surrounded by pillows and a thick comforter, and watched as the two men discussed what had happened. Rupert somehow looked disheveled. It wasn't as if his minimal amount of clothing was askew. His perfect hair was tangled. But mostly it was the smear of red across his chest and down his abs. I refused to think it was blood. He pulled his hair back from his face and began wrapping an elastic around, tying it up into a bun. It was like he knew that I swooned over men with their long hair up. He undid the fussy buckles and peeled the red sleeves off. I couldn't bring myself to calling it a jacket when it only covered his arms and shoulders. It was tight and hadn't hid the shape it covered. Somehow those muscles looked so much bigger in his skin. He looked down at his chest in disgust. Muttering something in that language I did not recognize, he exited through a different door. I could hear running water. And when he returned, he was drying off with a towel. He pulled items from drawers, including what turned out to be one of those Henley-style shirts. Its cream-colored fabric strained at his shoulder and arm muscles, but hung loose to his hips. He skimmed the hip-hugger red leather pants off. I quickly looked at Gray, but not after getting a good look at Rupert's ass. Gray smirked, winking at me as we made eye contact. I felt the blush creep across my skin and clamped my eyes shut. I could not stop the color change. What are you doing? Gray asked. Changing. Don't ask stupid questions, Rupert grumbled. I'm done preening for the night. The tone of his voice changed. Willa. My lamb, are you pained? Are you still naked? I managed to squeak out. He let out a hearty laugh. No, my lamb, I am clothed. I opened my eyes. She was affronted by your nudity, Gray laughed behind him. I believe our dear Willa has never seen a nude man before. Rupert sat on the bed and reached for my hand. One pair of red leather pants replaced by a slightly darker pair, that I assumed stayed up around his waist instead of clinging desperately to his hips. Oh my God, the two of you. No. I have seen naked men before. It's rude to look at naked bits when one has not been invited to do so. I would have crossed my arms with indignation, except I was still holding the empty orange juice glass. Rupert kissed the back of the hand he held, and I sighed with resignation. I was stuck with these two. It wasn't exactly a hardship. With Rupert in practically normal clothes, he was even more handsome, and I could look at him. Before I had been embarrassed to look, I didn't know where to let my eyes rest. So much skin, and I wanted to ogle and be rude. But then he spoke to me, and I couldn't just look at him from the safe space of anonymity. You might want to change. Once Friedrich finds out, things will get messy. Gray gestured at his clothes. This hose is off. Why do you think I chose it for tonight? He gave me a wicked grin, with a hint of sharp teeth exposed as he retrieved the empty glass from my hand and set it on a side table. Had I seen what I thought I had seen? Retrieving my hand from Rupert, I looked at the bandage on my wrist. The small smears of blood told me nothing. Had Gus somehow cut me? I could only remember his mouth on me. Then again, those memories felt very fuzzy. More like half-forgotten dreams than actual memories. I touched the bandage on my neck. What did Gus do to me? Gustav, Rupert dragged out the name like it tasted bad. And you do not need to worry about him anymore. I cut my glance from Rupert to Gray. He had stopped moving, his expression went stone cold. Dressed all in white with his long hair and pale skin, he could have been cut from marble. He was as still as a statue. Rupert, on the other hand, looked incredibly human, with blood coursing through his skin. His nostrils flared and his eyes flashed. They actually flashed. I flinched back. What was that? Rupert looked away. Sorry, my emotions. He glanced away, hiding his eyes from me. I reached forward to turn his face to me. No, my lamb, you should not see me this way. He caught my arm, stilling my movement. If I am your little lamb, as you keep calling me, then trust me. I don't know where the nerves of steel came from that allowed me to tell this man to trust me. I didn't know him, yet somehow I shook that thought away. You're in trouble because of what happened with Gustav. Gustav did something to me. I'm involved now, I said with conviction. His eyes were closed as he turned his face to me.
Rupert, you shouldn't, Gray said.
He put her in danger, Rupert hissed. He was off the bed and confronting the other man. They were a sight, such opposites. Gray, all slender and lithe, icy demeanor, cool, pale. Rupert was fire in comparison. Both so beautiful, so sexy. What I wouldn't give for them to actually think of me as a little lamb, and their dear. Unfortunately, I'd been here before. I was fat girl cred for the hot guys. I was a curiosity. I was perceived as easy or desperate when I went out because of my size. Being bigger than cute pudgy, and not looking like a plus-size underwear model with an hourglass figure 24/7, I hated to admit it, but more often than not that perception was accurate. Then there were the days I had self-confidence for miles. I knew my worth, and I probably could crush a watermelon with my thighs if I tried. Those moments tended not to be when I walked into a nightclub or a bar. Those moments happened on the dance floor when left alone. I got lost in the music or when I was studying or at work. It rarely coincided with the times I actually needed it. Something about these two, and having gotten past the mistrust of them within this entire foreboding situation, had my confidence in place. And if my confidence had personification, she was standing with arms akimbo and her heels dug in while wearing chainmail with wings on her helmet. She didn't care if they were just toying with me for a hookup. I wasn't looking for a relationship with either of them, but I would take a good romp in this bed if the situation allowed for it. I ripped the bandage off my wrist and held up my damaged arm with its 2 dark bruised and bloody puncture wounds. Talk to me, I demanded. Gustav isn't the only vampire here, is he? My loves. Faster than a blink, Rupert had his hand gripping around Gray's throat. What did you tell her? He hissed out through clenched teeth. The gold glow returned to his eyes. Gray grabbed at Rupert's arm. His expression was equally as fierce as he fought back. He didn't tell me anything, I yelled. Stop it or I'm walking out that door. I pointed to the heavy wood door I assumed opened onto a hall that led back to the party. Rupert dropped Gray, with nostrils flaring like an angry bull, turned to face me. I figured it out, and Fangboy, you pretty much just confirmed everything. Chapter 6. Rupert dropped Gray, and had his arms around me in a moment. Gray? Rupert pleaded. He held my wrist delicately, and away from us both as Gray stepped back into the bathroom. The wound had started to bleed again. My smart lamb, you have discovered our secrets. I haven't discovered anything. You're acting weird. Everything about this place is strange. Gustav bit me, but you haven't even tried. No, you are special. Gray returned and wordlessly wrapped my wrist. Once he was done, he placed a kiss on the bandage. I know you must leave soon, but it was my heart's pleasure to serve you once again. What do you mean, again? Why is it you both act as if you know me? Because we have known you, my lamb, Rupert started. The fight between us was deadly and bloody, and attracted a demon of the night. Demons? Great vampires, now demons. Go on, I suggested. Gray sat next me, and held my bandaged wrist in his lap. She would call him a vampire, Rupert said. So would I, but back then neither of us knew. Everything was a demon, or a devil. We were ignorant. Foolish. Stupid, Gray sighed. We were both in love with the same woman. Her name was Isolde. She was the daughter of a merchant. We dueled for her affections. In the end, we both lost. But now you are here, and you can finally settle things between us. Pick one of us to be your champion, and the other will leave in shame and devastation. You really are dramatic, I said. Who said I wanted to pick? And how will me choosing end your rivalry? I'm not the same woman. We go to certain battle, and you would leave us to die not knowing? I squirmed off the side of the bed, and shoved my feet into my sparkly flats. So much drama. I crossed the room and opened the door. My eyes went wide with shock. Feet away, in a cross corridor, a phalanx of men ran past in unison. I closed the door quietly, so as not to draw attention. Why does it look like an army is preparing to go to battle out there? I asked. Standard patrol. I didn't think they could have discovered that Gustav is missing so soon. Gustav was Friedrich's favorite. It means that they haven't discovered it was me yet, Rupert said. Or they would be breaking down my door. We have some time, we can get you out of the keep before anyone knows. You'll have to get your sister to leave the party. We can distract the guards and allow you to leave. You weren't joking when you said you were going into battle, were you? I asked. Gray shook his head. It will be inevitable, once it is discovered that Gustav is missing. Battle and dead, hot vampires meant I wasn't going to have a second chance. I needed my inner Valkyrie to get real cool with some shit, real fast. Not exactly certain where the confidence came from, I turned back to the door and bolted it shut. You cannot barricade yourself in with us. I can, for a while. You said it yourself, we have some time. And, I took a deep breath and pulled my dress off over my head, leaving me in my shiny shoes, slip shorts and a bra. If you are going to battle, you should have a proper send-off. You wanted to know which of you I'd choose. I choose you both. I had never propositioned two men at the same time before. If these two wanted me, then why not? My throat was dry, and my heart pounded against my ribs. I took shallow breaths, because that's all I could manage. I lifted my eyes to meet Rupert's first. His expression was of shock. Gray's wasn't much better. Neither man spoke. Maybe this hadn't been the sexy gesture I had thought it was. Maybe I misread their attention. Gray moved first. He lifted his hand and stepped toward me. I slid my hand into his and he wrapped himself around me. His lips found mine. He kissed like he was a professional at it. Like kissing me was something he had been waiting for centuries to do. Maybe he had. Rupert slid in against my back. His lips peppered kisses over my shoulder as he murmured, "You are so beautiful. To touch you at long last," and other sexy romantic toss-away lines. He didn't need to seduce me, I was ripe for the picking. It wasn't fair. That had felt beyond so good, and I wanted more. I don't think any of us could have thrust a hip, or twitched a finger at that point. Gray draped across the foot of the bed. I collapsed across Rupert's legs. I wanted to reach out and play with his toes, but I did not have the energy to move my arms. Isolde, Gray started. Had only your precious Isolde chosen both of you, I said weakly. I was too exhausted to be angry that they were still thinking of her. I needed a minute before my ire could think about returning. Isolde would never have done that. Gray finished listlessly. She once exposed her ankle to me, Rupert confessed. He ran his hand softly over my skin. I rolled off his legs. He shifted so that he held himself above me.
You were worth everything.
He kissed me, and it was deep and wonderful. Chapter 7. When I emerged from the bathroom fully dressed, Gray was straightening his clothing. You really just gonna wipe down and go about your business? I asked. He pulled me against him. Who said anything about wiping down? I'm going to wear your scent. Rupert hiked the dark red leather pants he had on earlier back up. You need to get out of here before Friedrich has figured anything out. If we are lucky, that little interlude did not give him the much-needed time to discover Gustav is no longer on the premises. Interlude? It seemed a bit more intense than an interlude, I said. I wanted to tell them it was the best sex of my life, of my imagination. It was the kind that would have me begging for more. Ignore him, darling. He chooses his words so that he will think less of what happened. He knows that we know it was earth-shattering. It is a memory worth taking into battle with no regrets. It was unforgettable, as you are. And I will remember it with bliss until my dying moment. I didn't like the way he said that. It sounded as if his dying moment was coming a lot sooner than later. I wrapped my arms around Rupert and held on. I didn't want to think of him dying. Hurry, Gray said. He leaned next to the door, holding it open a mere crack. I slipped my shoes back on and followed Rupert out. Gray followed behind me, taking up the back. I felt as if I was suddenly in a movie, as we tiptoed through cavernous halls. At one point, Rupert had us crawling below the edge of a low wall. Over, under, through. The castle was riddled with hidden passages, and I swear we crept through all of them. I finally recognized where we were when we entered the atrium dining room with the opulent stained glass ceiling. Rupert turned and grasped my upper arms. You must get your sister out of there. If you do not, she will be trapped here forever. I shook my head, not understanding. What do you mean, forever? She can just leave when the party shuts down. The party never ends, Willa, Gray said. It lasts until the after party, I cut him off. Until they are selected. We don't feed until after. He looked away from my eyes. I stared hard at Rupert. The after party is what Gus did to me, isn't it? There is no exclusive party. It's being the main course at a dinner party of one. Oh my God. I pressed my fingers to my mouth. I wanted to throw up. Everyone keeps talking about the after party, as if it's the most amazing thing ever. They keep coming back hoping to get in. They don't keep coming back, Willa. They never leave. The drink, the lotus water, makes them forget how long they have been here. If you do not rescue your sister tonight, you will never see her again. I can come back tomorrow, I said. I sounded desperate to my own ears. No, my lamb. We will go with the fog. This place will not be here tomorrow. It won't return for many years. I won't ever see you again? I asked. It's unlikely we will even survive the night. But if we do, Gray shook his head, we will be gone. I pressed my mouth to Rupert's. I wanted one last taste of him, before he would become nothing more than a memory. I reached for Gray and kissed him. I held them both to me and forced myself not to cry. I was always bad at goodbyes. This one somehow felt harder than any time I had to say goodbye before. Okay, I said when I let go. What do I need to do? When those doors open, Rupert pointed. You run and you drag your sister out. Don't let her stay here. We will distract the others. Run and do not stop running, Gray said with a nod. I looked nervously from Rupert to Gray. Finally, Rupert nodded. Run, my lamb, run. I ran through the doors, down the hall, and past the coat check into the party. I found Ellie and grabbed her. She had another one of those lotus waters. I knocked it out of her hands. We're leaving, I said as I clamped my hand down on her wrist. She tugged back against me. I yanked hard, hurting her, hoping the pain would help to clear the poison that was in her brain. Look around you, Ellie. These people never leave, I said. We were surrounded by partiers, wearing their best. I don't know why it hadn't dawned on me earlier. The woman from the bathroom. She was wearing rave wear I would have loved to have dressed in when I was 7. She was 15 years out of date at the very least. Other ravers had dreads and ribbon extensions. The fashion was old. So they're dressed for a rave. Yeah, they're dressed for a rave about 15 years ago. Think about it, I said. Ellie got quiet. I could see her staring harder. You're right, that's how I wanted to dress when I was little. Everybody here is slightly out of date. What the hell? We need to leave. And we need to leave now. But the after party? That's something we don't want to hang around for, I answered. Fine, let me get Chris. She pushed her way through the dancing throng that I followed after her. We found Chris in the middle of a booth, surrounded by beautiful people. Chris, we got to go, Ellie said. Nah, babe. This place is great. I'm having a good time, he said. We'll have a good time somewhere else. We need to go. You're such a killjoy. You go ahead and leave, your sister drove. I'll follow you later. No, Chris. You need to come with us. I reached into the booth and grabbed the front of his shirt and bodily dragged him to his feet. Why don't you just leave? I'll take Ellie home. I looked at the lady next to Chris. Hey, what's the date? I asked. Saturday night. Right? She shrugged. I'll make it easy for you. What century is it? I asked. What century is it? Oh man, it's the new century. It's 2001, she said with a self-satisfied grin. Chris's eyes went wide. He just stared at the woman. Excuse me a second. When was the last time you knew that there was a place here? I asked him. He shrugged. Just then, a woman with slick blonde hair that flipped back into wings in a figure-skimming gold bodysuit flipped an arm around Chris's shoulder. Come dance with me. Chris looked at her and then back at me. You're right. Let's go. This isn't a costume party. So you noticed she was dressed like some kind of disco queen, right? I said. There are people here from the 70s and the 50s, and who knows how much further back. I thought they were just, dressed as retro pinups, Ellie said. I shook my head. No, I think they're really trapped in time at this party. We need to get out, otherwise we are trapped here. Ellie insisted on stopping at the coat check. We had already wasted time. I left mine and ran for the front door. Gray had said it would be open for us, and it was, as promised. We ran out the front doors and down the steps. Get in the car, I yelled. What about my bike? Chris asked. Forget about it. We'll come back tomorrow and pick it up. We need to go. Now. Despite the fog, I drove faster than I felt comfortable. The faster I drove, the more the fog dissipated. What the hell was that? Chris yelled. I don't know. It wasn't a complete lie. I couldn't exactly tell him we had escaped some vampire lair that vanished in the mist. But something tells me, if we hadn't left when we did, we would have been trapped there. You mean trapped like forever? Ellie asked. I nodded. Hotel California style, you can never leave. What about your two hotties? She asked. I shrugged. It hurt too much to say anything. I had left them behind, left them to battle, because the favorite of their leader decided to snack on my neck, and those hotties took offense. I drove straight to my apartment. Ellie and Chris camped out in the living room. I passed out on my comfortable bed. I spent the night dreaming of Rupert and Gray, and worrying about their impending fight. When I woke, I felt like I'd been kicked in the head by a mule. My neck throbbed, as did my wrist. I stumbled out into my living room. Ellie and Chris were sitting up, rubbing their heads. I feel like shit. What did we drink last night? I don't remember drinking anything. I think it was that fog. I need to get my bike, Chris started complaining. I needed a shower. Everything about me felt gross. Well, do you want to get your bike first, or do you want to shower and have breakfast? He shrugged. I just want to get my bike out of there. We all climbed back into my car and drove back to the lake. There was no stone wall. There was no fancy country club gate. I'm sure this is how we came the first time. I drove down the road, turned around and went straight back to the exit. This is where we got off the freeway, Ellie confirmed. This time I drove slowly down the road. Hey, what's that? Ellie shouted. I slammed on my brakes and pulled over. We got out of the car and started kicking around. It was right under the bramble and the weeds, crumbled fragments of a wall. Something had been here. It had fallen apart years ago. We got back in the car, and I continued to drive slowly, looking for anything that might be a driveway. I turned off onto what looked more like a rut in dirt. We drove up into an empty field. There was no building. There were no cars. The only thing that proved we had been there last night was Chris's bike sitting in the middle of a field. Chapter 8. In a matter of days, both Ellie and Chris had forgotten about the entire incident. I got tired of trying to explain why we drove into an empty field to pick up his motorcycle. Eventually I shrugged and said, I don't know. But I did know. And I remembered. And I could not shake my red knight or the angel in white from my mind. It started with driving past the site on my way home from work. It didn't matter that it was in the opposite direction, or that it added hours to my commute home. That only lasted a few days. You are insane, I told myself and forced myself to go straight home. I had no focus. I started to make dinner and forgot halfway through, leaving it in the microwave only to discover it several hours later, after I had gone out for fast food drive-through. The next day I drove up into the field and got out of my car. There was nothing but dried up weeds and scrub brush. I kicked around until the sun set, and I was left in the dark. I hadn't even found evidence that a building, let alone a large stone one, had ever been there. When I found myself sitting in the middle of nowhere, crying over men that only I remembered, for the second week in a row, I knew I had to do something. I hit the county archives. What could I find out about the property? Who owned it? Had there ever been a castle here? Most of our records are online, the clerk said as I followed her down a dank hallway with flickering fluorescent lights. But lucky you, it looks like everything you want hasn't been scanned in yet. Lucky me, I mumbled. But that didn't surprise me in the least. A mysterious castle that appeared out of the mist and records on said location haven't been digitized. Of course, it was only reasonable. She led me into a room lined with old drab file cabinets. I followed her to the farthest corner. She patted 3 specific file cabinets. Anything regarding that land will be in here. We close at 6, so set an alarm or something. You don't want to get locked in. Can I check the files out? There was more information here than I would be able to get through in an afternoon. Maybe being locked in and having all night to research wasn't such a bad idea. Sorry, hun. We aren't the library. But tell you what, now that you know where you're going, you won't need someone to walk you down here. Just tell whoever is at the desk you're doing research and headed down here. This is room B38. They'll let you in. Okay, thanks. I gave her a little wave as the door closed with an ominous creak and thud. A quick perusal of the cabinets indicated the property by the lake was documented in chronological order. I decided to start from the beginning. The land was designated as part of a grant by the Crown, as if they had the right to give away land that wasn't theirs. I found nothing that I could link directly to any of the names I had heard that night: Friedrich, Gustav, Rupert, Gray. I had no surnames. This wasn't going to be an easy task. I skipped a few files, jumping decades. Cotton fields, tobacco, the crops rotated in and out. At one point, there had been an orchard. I couldn't imagine it at all. Unfortunately, I could picture it entirely too well when I read a list of atrocities that occurred on the land. I had to slam the file drawer shut. I closed my eyes and shook my head, trying to clear the evil of humanity from my thoughts. I stood and changed tactics. With a yank, I pulled open the most recently dated file drawer. The first file included articles on missing persons. I sank to the floor, with a picture of a beautiful young woman in my hands. Last seen, dated not quite 20 years earlier. Hair naturally brown. At time of reporting it was pink. It was the woman from the restroom, the one with the lip gloss waiting for the after party. I snuck her picture into my purse, closed the file cabinet, and left. I got online as soon as I got home. My search engine skills weren't the best, but I had a name, a date, and an image. I was going to find out everything I could about the missing young woman. My jaw hung open, or was pressed closed by my fingers through the course of the night. On a foggy night, Cindy McAllister and her friends went to a party. She did not return, and her friends couldn't remember what happened. According to the reports I read, those friends eventually even forgot there was a party. I followed threads to see what her friends were up to currently. One had died by suicide within a year of the mysterious party. Another had undergone an extensive investigation, but nothing was ever found. He seemed to have fallen off the internet's map about 10 years later. The case of Cindy McAllister was considered a cold case and appeared on several reality television shows. It was included in the file on the property because a friend who had not been able to make it to the party identified the location as the destination for a rave. The Cindy McAllister I met had been a few years younger than me. She was fresh-faced and not aged at all. Had she aged normally, she would have been in her mid-40s. I could not get back to the county archives fast enough. I called in sick to work and was sitting on the steps waiting for the county building to be unlocked, a hot cup of tea in my hand, and a stack of notebooks ready to write in the next morning. I started at the beginning and worked through the first 3 drawers. I wrote down name after name of missing persons that all had a connection to the location somehow. I glanced back at that bottom drawer, the one with the earliest dated information, the one with the documents that identified that field as a place of death, a killing field. There had been something wrong with that place, and I had felt it in my bones. Maybe I had been wrong. Maybe a place could become evil if enough evil happened, if enough blood was spilled. My blood had been spilled. I looked at the faint marks on my wrist. They were healed, but I still had 2 distinct red marks there. The bite mark on my neck hadn't been as tidy. It looked like tears in my skin. I covered it with scarves or wore my hair down. In a few more weeks, a little makeup would cover it. How many deaths, how many after-parties had tainted that place? I was sick to my stomach over the list of missing people, men and women. But I wasn't finding anything useful. I closed my eyes and picked a cabinet and drawer at random. The first time, I got nothing. The next time, I decided to go straight to the middle cabinet and to the front of the 3rd drawer. About as middle as I could get in a 4-drawer cabinet. Score! My voice sounded ridiculously loud. There it was, a drawing of the mansion. The drawing accompanied an article that read out of the society pages. It was an announcement that the home, originally built by Colonel Jedediah Friedrich, location of the season's most elaborate balls, had been decimated in a fire. Further back in the files, I found the fire had started during a freak lightning storm, setting the cotton fields ablaze, and in turn the mansion. It was dated decades after the Civil War. Still, unless that land had been cleared, wouldn't there be some remnants indicating a building of that stature? I shook my head. I wasn't an archaeologist. What would I know about any of it? I had a name, Jedediah Friedrich. Was it possible that he was the same Rupert and Gray had been talking about? I took my notes home. I spent hours staring at the list of missing people. It made no sense. The dates were all 20th and 21st century. Maybe I hadn't looked far enough back to see when they started. Maybe that was the clue I was missing. I wished I was better at puzzles. I felt like there was a common thread. I just wasn't able to identify it. It would be a few days before I could go back to the archives. I had a list of questions on a sticky note, ready to take with me so that I knew where to start. Go have fun, I texted my sister. I didn't feel like going out. I hadn't for weeks. 45 minutes later, Ellie was at my door with pizza. You can't say no, I'm already here, she said as she stepped around me and into my apartment. Ellie, I whined. We are going to watch a movie, paint each other's toenails while we ignore another movie, and basically have some fun, she said. She pulled the roll of paper towels from the spindle and grabbed 2 beers from the fridge. She stopped to look at the notes and articles I had scattered all over my coffee table. "Wait, don't move anything," I yelled frantically. "What is all this?" She didn't touch anything, but read a few of the headlines. "A little project I'm working on." I couldn't tell her what it was. She no longer remembered the mysterious mansion and the party. "Are you finally going to write that book?"
Yes, that's it.
I grabbed onto that offered concept with both hands. "Oh, looks like a mystery," she said. "That's it exactly," I said, running with the idea. "Murder mystery. My protagonist specializes in paranormal cold cases. I'm trying to figure out some patterns, and blending in a little factual history so it feels real." I gathered the notes into a semblance of order and moved them onto my desk. "That explains your choice of dates." "Huh? What about the dates?" "You applied the Fibonacci sequence to your dates. Didn't you?" She put the glasses down on the now cleared-off coffee table. She held out her hand and wiggled her fingers. "Let me see that again." I opened the notebook to the page she had been referring to. She nodded as she ran her finger down the list of dates. "Totally, you can apply a Fibonacci retracement sequence to these dates. They look random, but they are really a spiral." She smiled up at me. "That finance class was actually worth something. This is very clever, Willa. I can't wait to read it." "Me either," I said. There was a pattern, and my little sister saw it. Would the date of the last party fit the sequence? Was there another missing person now trapped, drinking lotus water and waiting for the after party? I was so distracted, I watched the movie without paying any attention to it. "I was really worried you were sick or super depressed. You haven't been going out, now I understand. I always knew you would write books someday. I'm so happy you finally started," she said as she hugged me. "I still think you should go out occasionally." "I will," I promised as I closed the door. I didn't sleep that night. I was too busy trying to work out the pattern. She saw it, it was there. But I couldn't quite math it out. I calculated the date we were there. Once I added that, the sequence was as plain as day. I couldn't believe I had missed it. According to the sequence, the mansion and its mysterious party would not reappear for years and years. It would reach a maximum time gap, and then drop back down and start over again. My whole body slumped as I realized I would be old before I could even test my hypothesis. It wasn't fair. I wanted to find out if Rupert and Gray were safe. I wanted to see them again. I had a list of missing persons, and nothing that I could do with them. I certainly couldn't take that information to the police or FBI. They would think I was nuts. I didn't know what to do with the information I had. I only had it because I was hoping for some help identifying where they were, and if I could ever see them again. I returned to the bad habit of driving to the location after work. I had to get over them. I had to. But I didn't want to. They weren't a one-night thing for me, not the way they invaded my dreams. Chapter 9. A hint of fog hovered over the road as I drove home from running late errands. Of course, my mind wandered back to seeing Rupert for the first time, in that ridiculous leather outfit that exposed his torso from pubic bone to collarbones. I missed him. I missed Gray and that kinky vinyl outfit. I didn't pay attention to where I was going, until I realized I was pulling into the dirt path I had created on the property where the mansion appeared out of the mist. The fog wasn't as thick or as ominous as it had been on that night. I wished it was thicker than a fuzzy blanket. I wished the mansion that looked like a castle would appear. I wished for the way Rupert's accent tickled my nerves, and how being called Little Lamb was somehow endearing and annoying at the same time. I got out of my car. Wrapping my arms around myself, I wandered about. Was this what heroines of those original Gothic romance novels experienced when they walked on the misty moors? Alone in the world, lost without their true love? The fog seemed to surround me, and grow almost solid in its pale obstruction of everything around me. If only. I stumbled. My foot hit something. I reached down and picked up a short length of thick branch. I tossed it away and continued to wander. The dim light of the region bounced off the mist, creating shadows that danced and loomed. I so desperately longed for those men. Their care and attention ruined me for any other affections. And the way they had touched and worshipped my body. I stumbled and fell to my knees.
Damn it!
I hit the ground. Angry, sad, and hurt. I didn't mean to cry. I wanted to be stronger than that, but why hadn't I forgotten? It would have been better if I couldn't remember anything. It wouldn't hurt so much. I didn't mean to fall in love with you, but I did. I choose both of you, please let me forget, why can't I forget? After allowing myself time to wallow, I wiped my face and stared out into the void. The shadows were almost shaped like people doing battle. I heard eerie screams, but that was only the wind through the branches. I stood up, and I could have sworn the fog glowed with an orange tint. The smell of smoke tickled my nose. More of that freaky sound. It was time to get back to my car. But where was it in the thickened fog? I dug my keys out of my pocket and clicked the fob, ears pricked for the chirrup sound of my lock. I turned in the direction I thought the sound came from, and pressed the button again. This time I saw my car's lights flash. What the hell? In the flash of light, I swear I saw the looming shadow of the mansion. More screams. There was no wind, those sounds were actual screams and shouts. I hurried toward my car, clicking the button to make sure I was walking in the right direction. As I got closer to my car, the orange glow grew brighter. I continued on past my car, getting closer to the shadows and noise. I kept moving toward what looked like a fire. Something rushed at me from out of the fog. Everything went dark. My lamb, Rupert's voice was as beautiful as ever. I started crying, knowing this was just another dream to taunt me. My darling, what is the matter? Gray's dulcet tones caressed my ears but assaulted my heart. I cried harder. Pick her up, get her away from all this smoke. I felt a sudden surge as I was lifted. I clawed whatever I could find purchase on, holding on to prevent me from falling. It's all right, I have you, Rupert's breath brushed over my ear. I clutched him, not wanting the dream to end this time. I held on as if I could take him with me into the awake world. My eyes opened, and if this was a dream, the details were all there and so very real. Weak sunlight filtered through fog. Stale smoke mixed with the scent of damp morning dew. I leaned against something firm and not something someone. I twisted. Rupert caught me before I overbalanced and tipped over. Willa dear, you've awoken finally. I blinked up into Gray's face. He had smears of dirt and soot on his face. His vinyl clothes were shredded. Spots of blood mixed with more dirt against his skin. What happened? How are you here? I examined the arms that held me. They were dirty but appeared unharmed. I pushed out of Rupert's embrace and turned to look at him. The cream-colored shirt I had last seen was now dingy with red blood spread across one side. I'm fine, he said with a chuckle. He squeezed my hand in reassurance. Gray wrapped his arms around me and held me. How are you here? How are you able to be out in the light? I pushed his lip up, exposing teeth. Where are your fangs? Do you really love us? Both of us? Gray asked. Yes, I do. I love you. How did? You broke the curse. We were all damned, the unlovable. That's how Friedrich picked us. Isolde would not choose. He collected those of us doomed to live without love and trapped us, Gray explained. But vampires, I started. It was the curse, we were condemned to live off of life's blood. When heart's blood was not given to us. I did not know of what you call vampires for many years. It served as good a name as anything else, monster, devil, demon. More fog cleared, and the remains of a burning building surrounded us. Bodies on the ground dissipated, vanishing like the fog under the sun. You're cured? But what happened? I asked, looking around. After you escaped, Friedrich came for us. He finally discovered that Gustav was gone, Rupert said. You left knowing we were going to battle, Gray said. Yeah, that was weeks and weeks ago. No, my lamb. What was weeks for you has only been hours for us. The taste of you is still on my tongue. The smile he gave me weakened my knees. When he followed it with a wink, I had no bones left. I could barely remember the feel of them, and they still remembered our tryst with sharp detail. I broke the curse. I'm sure plenty of women have fallen for your charms over the years, I scoffed. I didn't believe that my pitiful one-sided love for them could tear apart a centuries-old curse. But my dear, you did. We love you, and you love us in return. It's a true bond that broke the curse. I laughed. They were here, with me in the middle. I turned around. Hey, where's the burning mansion? The smoke? Everything was gone. It was the three of us and my car in the middle of an empty field. Gray stepped back, putting space between us as he looked around. Friedrich must have a way to steal back between time. I'm afraid he will rebuild and begin again, Rupert said as he stood and joined us in our loose embrace. We have lost our chance to destroy him. I laughed. I know when he's coming back. How? I explained how the missing persons from this area coincided with appearances of the mansion and the party. The disappearances happened in an identifiable time sequence. I was able to predict when they would next appear, but I hadn't known about the curse. You mean we could destroy him for once and for all? Gray asked. With planning we could, Rupert said. I hope you don't mind waiting, I answered. It was going to be years before they would have their next chance at ending Friedrich's reign of horror, for those he cursed and for those whose lives and memories he stole. As long as we are with you, and you love us, I promise the years will go by entirely too quickly. Gray stepped in close, as did Rupert. I love you. I kissed my red knight first, his face was the closest. I then kissed my angel, happy to be enclosed in their embrace once again. Epilogue. I ended up writing that book my sister thought I was working on. The Vanishing Castle series was based on stories Rupert and Gray told me. Combined with the cold case files I researched, it ended up on multiple bestseller lists. It was picked up for a network television series and ran for 11 seasons. I never had to worry about either Gray or Rupert finding jobs, even though they were both scouted to be models for romance novel covers. For 34 years, my men planned and plotted. By the time the mansion was due back, Rupert's hair had gone gray at the temples, and Gray had cut his long tresses. Still fit, still gorgeous, they were intimidating and armed with advanced weaponry when the fog appeared. The pattern of missing persons officially ended.
This has been Missed Chances by Lulu M. Sylvian. Want more Halloween adventure? Keep listening for a sneak peek at Size Matters.
Size Matters. Excerpt. A vampire, a werewolf, and a demon walk into a bar. Sounds like the beginning of a joke. But no, not a joke, just my life. Possibly the most screwed up night of my life. And probably the best one ever. I thought I had a good, original costume, until I saw the group of furries. 3 fine male bodies in skin-tight low-pile furred bodysuits. Pecs and upper arm muscles exposed. Boy band meets werewolf group costume in all of their hotness. No shirts, of course. Why would they? They were already wearing fur bodysuits. And they were really good suits. Someone had their PhD in cosplay. They were as stereotypical as they came. The blonde bad boy wolf wore a bandana tied over his head, open vest, and heavy chains. And just to drive home the point, he was biker bad. The neck chain wasn't gold, but a motorcycle drive chain, and he had on fingerless driving gloves to show off the claws. The fursona heads were seamlessly put together, and had to have some heavy-duty animatronics. They showed personality. Each one's features were as different as faces. Impressively, the lips and jaws moved. The Posh Spice member of the group had darker fur, wore designer sunglasses, and a designer suit. Again, no shirt, but plenty of rippling muscles. Why would any of them have on shirts? They were there to show off their gym memberships and some fine-ass costumery. The third one, another dark wolf, had to be the wholesome one. His jacket was slightly zipped, practically modest. He wore a sparkling white tracksuit with red stripes and had white sweatbands at his wrist. Or maybe he was the Playboy tennis instructor. "Do you see these guys?" I asked Vinyana. I felt increasingly lame in my tossed-together vampire slayer costume, based on a conglomeration of some old movies. I wore tight pants and a corset, because of course one must be girded to the point of bruised ribs to fight vampires. I had a crossbow strapped to my thigh. I thought I so cleverly handcrafted it from a thrift store cross, some wire coat hangers and duct tape. 2 bandoliers crisscrossed my chest, and yes, I strategically pinned them in place. One must emphasize the girls in a costume like this. One I had filled with test tubes of vodka. Anyone who asked was told they were holy water. And the other had sharpened sticks. I might have ruined the pencil sharpener at work. Vin turned her attention to the group in question, raked them hard up and down with an assessing gaze, and shrugged. "I didn't think you went in for furries." She wore a too tight, too short schoolgirl uniform. The shirt was completely unbuttoned and tied at her waist, with a red lace push-up bra. It looked like the standard store-purchased slutty Halloween wear, but it all came from her closet and her private school upbringing. She had the body for it, so why not? She looked like a classic, underaged teen pop princess in all of her hit-me-baby glory. I bet her mother wouldn't have kept the uniforms if she had known how Vin would be wearing them 7 years later. "I go in for hard bodies and good costumes," I replied and took a sip of my cocktail. I had added one of the vials of vodka, for a heftier kick. "Oh," was all she said. "Oh what?" I still had my eyes on the boy band, wondering if they might break into a choreographed dance routine. Vin tugged on my bandolier. I looked at her. She stood like a statue, staring at something across the club. I followed her gaze, then stopped. "Oh," I also said. It was a miracle that I could manage a full syllable. Across the room stood the most glorious example of manhood. I swear the heavens opened and rays of light shone down on him. A host of angels sang a chorus for his very being. He was tall. He had glorious long black hair that fell past his belt. It had to be a good wig, a very good wig. He wore layered robes. The red outermost robe had those long butterfly-like sleeves. Daggers or something, they were long and narrow, tucked into his tied sash, and he held a fan in his hand. He was the personification of every good-looking ancient Chinese fantasy movie, an anime man from feudal times. "I saw him first," Vin said, as she launched herself across the room at the prize of the night. Problem was, she wasn't the only one to have seen this god on earth walk into the club. I stood there like a rank idiot, and just watched as wave after wave of women approached him. Within seconds, he was surrounded by his very own harem of sexy nurses, genies, and slutty cops. Not going after the hottie dressed like an anime hero might have been the best thing I never did. He moved, carried away by his wake of admirers, and my gaze drifted, then locked with a pair of piercing green eyes. The eyes blinked, and I swore they glowed. It felt as if I couldn't break free of their hold if I wanted to, which I didn't. I didn't care who or what those eyes belonged to. I was theirs. Sucked in like an alien tractor beam. I probably would have stayed perfectly still until their owner consumed me, if one of the furry boys hadn't backed up into me, jostling me so that I staggered and spilled my drink down my front. "Oh hey. Are ya all right? Sorry, my bad." I stared at him, as he blotted the worst of the spill from my hip with his tail. The drink had splashed along my side and down my leg. Dazed, I was aware of how considerate he was being, not handsy at all. Not too much else made it into my brain at that point. No, don't use your tail. You don't want to get that dirty." I reached out for his tail, and tried to get him to stop. "Your costume," I sighed. The fur felt real, not fake. Damn, that was an expensive work of art, not some simple Halloween getup. He should not have been blotting up a spilled drink with it. His attention turned to my face, and I saw a sparkle in his clear amber eyes. I swear the puppetry in that mask was the bomb, because he was smiling. And I was right, he was the wholesome humble boy of the band. He gave me another sweet wolfish grin, I was dying to know how that was even possible, and left me alone. I scanned the party looking for who those green eyes belonged to. I felt bereft of purpose without them. I bumped and jostled my way to the dance floor. I circumnavigated the entire party, trying to catch a pair of glowing green eyes. I had no idea what the face they belonged to looked like. I didn't know if my moment in time had been with a woman or a man. I just knew I needed to look into those eyes again. I caught glimpses of Vin and the harem she had joined around the hottie anime guy, and I saw my furry band. Wholesome Cutie and I caught each other's glances a few times. What did he look like under all that costuming? Beautiful people don't hide behind masks. A very proper British accent caressed my ear. I turned and froze. Those eyes,